Super. Well, Peter, it's great to have you again for another year of this report. You're one of the faces that's really familiar with it, so it's great to have you again. Perhaps the best way to kickstart the conversation is with the main highlights from Dutylex in the past 12 months. I mean, you opened last year the first solar lubricant terminal in Tarqua. How has that been going? What has kept you busy? And yeah, what are the main highlights for you in the past year?
So thank you for that. By the way, I'm grateful for the opportunity as well. So as you are aware, Dutylex represents Petro-Canada in West, East, and Central Africa. Our collaboration is to focus on our core business of lubrication solution for the mining, oil and gas, manufacturing, food and beverage industry. But of course, for this call, the focus is on mining. We did open our first terminal, oil terminal in Ghana, right in the heart of the gold industry in Ghana, which is Tarqua. So far, we've had pretty good success with it. Before we obviously open our terminal, if you quantify what we were selling and to have the visibility, to have the opportunity to showcase what you can offer, has driven the numbers that we are currently doing in the district to about 3 times what we used to do before. So clearly, that visibility of the terminal is working and reaffirms our strategy of ensuring that we have presence in every area that we operate. And so I would say the journey has been good. Yes, it has had a lot of challenges with, getting known because we are still a new kind of brand compared to the established brands as Shell and Total. In Ghana, there is a high focus on local content. And so, local content is obviously one of the areas that we need to be able to ride on to, achieve a success in what we do. And our business is 100% owned Ghanaian, but then obviously we represent a brand which is foreign. And that in itself has, posed a couple of questions. Well, why are you local content, but then obviously representing a foreign product? Our goal, our strategy, our plan is to eventually blend in Ghana. But it's a process, right? The process starts, first of all, with bringing the finished product in country in small packages. Now, the next stage would be to bring the product in ISO tanks, in huge quantities. And then the final stage is to have a plant where we do the local blending in Ghana. You cannot necessarily have 100% manufacturing in Ghana with raw materials from Ghana as well. Nobody does that. You would obviously need the raw materials from all over the world that you can source it. But the blending is that bit that you can do in Ghana to bring down cost and then obviously ensure that your margins can increase in that space. Also, if you bring the product and the service closer to your customers, you are more likely to increase your input. So overall, I think it's been good. We've done quite a number of things to ensure that our footprint is established. So I think last year when we did the interview, we talked about 1 terminal. We have added another terminal. So I'm sitting in another terminal we call the first terminal, Terminal 1. I'm sitting in Terminal 2, which is the second one, which is the same concept, oil terminal. It's located in Tema, which is the port city, close to the capital, Accra. And the essence of it is to serve the local industry, to serve the port authorities that use a lot of lubricant because they require a lot of machinery. And that's the space that we want to as well dominate away from the mines. And so a lot of CapEx investment has gone into this. And we believe that gradually our footprint is increasing. All this conversation is Ghana, but then we also have West, East, and Central Africa, which is obviously part of our portfolio. So what are we doing in the other parts of the territories is to ensure that our presence is obviously felt. We are collaborating with local distributors to ensure that, you know, our reach to the market is there. And therefore, Nigeria is in play, Cote d'Ivoire is in play, Mali is in play, Burkina Faso is in play. We have extended our footprint to Eastern Africa, where we're doing quite a bit in Kenya, we're doing quite a bit in Tanzania, and then in Eastern Africa, in Central Africa, we're doing quite a bit as well in the Central African Republic, you know. That's primarily what we're doing in that space. We hope that we can get into DRC as well very soon. So gradually, you know, we have a plan to get into a lot of the spaces that we think is geared for the growth of Dutylex.
Absolutely. And this is really interesting because when preparing this interview, I was obviously reading your comments from last year, and, you know, I felt like the main message was being mindful of CapEx, but, you know, growing in West, Central, and the DRC parts of Africa. And I guess this has played out well as well. I think I really like as well the aspect of, you know, doing the blending and opening the lubricant terminal in Tarkwa, you know, really contributing to the local value chain, because I interviewed in Abidjan Vanessa Oshuye, who's the director of the African Development Bank, and she told me that, you know, particularly in the extractive industry, where Africa is headed, is creating value at home. You know, making sure that rather than exporting, making sure that rather than doing stuff we would traditionally do in China or in Asia, we managed to you know, contribute to those local supply chains. And I think, you know, that terminal in Tarkwa created at least 100 jobs, I believe, and supports
it did. Yes, it did.
Yeah, so that's really good. Is that you think going to be key for Ghana's success and the West Africa's success in the coming years, really almost kind of bringing back that supply chain home with companies like Dutylex?
No, I think that's certainly the future. Look, Africa has got so much to offer in what we do ourselves. I believe in the fact that we don't have to import solutions. We have the capacity, the capabilities in our environment, in our neighborhoods. What we need to have is the drive to make it happen. And I think that gradually the mindset is changing. The belief that we can do it is actually happening all around us. And I think that the eventual goal is to ensure that the end-to-end, you know, chain, the end-to-end part of the solution that we provide is coming from Africa and not imported from elsewhere. And I believe you see that in almost every country that you go to in Africa. These days, you know, there is a lot of focus on local content. Local content is the route to ensure that Africans are empowered. They have a share in the resources that the country has got. But the other thing that also augments that, it's not just the local content, it's to ensure that we also have a rich educational system that will push, you know, people through the educational process, train them with the right resource so that they can be resourceful and they can contribute towards it. Because regardless, you know, the fact that the existing human resource is probably able to deliver, if we don't train the up-and-coming youth to be able to take over, then at some point you would, you know, you have a gap. And so the educational process is equally important. And I think that's a realization all across and people are picking it up. We are not always expecting the government to come in and do it for us, because the drive has to come from us. And that's why people like myself started, to do what we are doing. And I believe that it's a gradual effort. It's, literally in my local adage, they say that 1 + 1 gives you 2, and 2 + 1 gives you 3. You can't jump from 1 to 3. It's a process. And that process has to be followed. And I believe that's the mindset that is playing out these days.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that's totally right. And also, I think there's also a realization with, the green transition and countries in Africa realizing, wait, we've got all that potential for cobalt, for nickel, for lithium. Now we need to leverage those resources locally.
That's right.
And also, even despite critical metals, it's also been a very good time for gold in West Africa. I mean, the mining code in Côte d'Ivoire is starting to pay off. Senegal, there's new discoveries. Mali shear zone as well. In terms of for Dutylex, what does the kind of demand for your lubricant solutions look like these days from the mining industry in Ghana and also in West Africa?
Right. So for us, growth is aligning with what's happening around us. And for me, what's happening around us is sustainability. How sustainable are we going to be as a business? Now, most of the mining companies are taking ESG, environment safety goals very, very important. So, every typical big mine has got an ESG plan. And so how do we as an entity fit into that plan? And that's by ensuring that our product provides some degree of sustainability to the industry, right? And that's why biodegradable lubricant is, for me, the future.
Right.
Moving away from, the mineral-based, product to a more sustainable, environmentally friendly product that would ensure that whatever we obviously touch today doesn't get spoiled, but we can pass it on to our children and grandchildren and just name it. So yes, sustainability is the path to go for us. That's what we are pursuing. And we are grateful that we have a partner in Petro-Canada that has got 100% purified product. It's, as a matter of fact, the only company in the world that has got its base oil, white oils, listed on the stock market. It is because of how purified it is. Now, even if you move away from the purification, the broad range of biodegradable products that we have gives us the mandate to be able to pursue sustainability on a much bigger front with our clients. And so we have started the journey. We are bringing all companies in Ghana and in the sub-region to the belt. And we are saying that the future is biodegradable. Let's ensure that all the legacy mineral oils that you use are changed from what it is to the sustainable biodegradable product. The other thing as well that has gone through testing to ensure that the goal to go biodegradable works is that the biodegradable product from us are such advanced that they actually reduce your your spend. And how do we do so? We stretch your interval drain time. So if you were actually using an oil that you had to change every month, our oils are now being changed every 2 months. So you are spending less on your product that goes into your machinery than if you use the old, mineralized oils. Right. And so from all, factors, it has to be a gain. biodegradable, ensuring sustainability and ESG goals are met. And from a cost perspective, which whether we like it or not, is a very important part of it. It's also ensured that the companies are reducing their spend on lubricants. So all in all, it has to be a gain. It's a win-win situation for the industry in Ghana and beyond.
Yeah. And I think when the operator realizes that it's not only just a sustainability and an ESG constraint, but as you said, there's also an economic gain to doing it.
That's
If you
right.
have to, because this is a 100% decrease in the time you have to change your oil. So it's very, very interesting to offer those solutions.
That's right.
And actually, it comes to mind. I remember reading your interview from 2 or 3 years ago, and at the time, I believe you said that the mining segment represented around 40 to 50% of your total turnover. How has that evolved, and how do you see the space for mining in your turnover in the coming years?
I think mining will certainly play a very key area. We have, since we started the operation of our terminal in Takwa, our oil terminal, we've actually increased the footprint of mining in our entity. We see in terms of numbers, mining is now moved from that 40% that you said 3 years ago to about 75% today. So it just tells that mining is an important area for us. We believe that even that number can increase a lot. And so if we obviously do the right things, if we ensure that we have a product that, it doesn't only win for businesses on the economic front, but also protecting the environment, which is something that we are all very conscious of these days. We have a good way to increase our revenues, and that's certainly something that we would try to pursue in the future.
Absolutely. Well, it's great as well to see how you've grown so much in the mining space. I mean, these are great figures, and it seems like it's only growth and expansion is only the keywords forward in terms of Dutylex. And speaking a bit more of a kind of operational question in Ghana. Of course, when we do those reports, we interview people from different countries in Africa. And we spoke recently with Hassan Husseini, who is the CEO of a firm called Crown Transport Logistics in Ghana as well. And, we discussed a bit about what it is operating in Ghana. And he said that sometimes there were infrastructure and logistics challenge as opposed to Côte d'Ivoire, for instance. Who's a bit more advanced in terms of the road network, etc. But I kind of wanted to have your opinion, because obviously the operating environment really well. What it is to be a service provider these days in Ghana compared with the rest of Western Africa.
Well, I mean, obviously, you can take the view that Ghana probably is, slightly behind the road networks in Côte d'Ivoire. But overall, as a continent, I think Ghana wouldn't be too far from one of the, countries with a very high level of roads, network roads. I think, honestly, also the business that we are in ensures that we are not necessarily always on the road. And so that picture can be well painted by a logistics company, right? So I would take what the other interviewee did say. But for me, I think mining is always rough. Mining is never going to be in an environment where you have a very well laid road. Sometimes you have to go through thick and thin to get to locations. The most important thing is that, whether we have the right setup to be able to reach wherever our customers would be. And I think the setup is there. We have a system in place. We have several emergency response protocols in place that makes us sort of reach whatever location, respond to whatever crisis that we might find ourselves in. And so comparatively, I'm sure, Cote d'Ivoire or elsewhere might have their own challenges as well.
Yeah, of
I
course.
am more of the view that whatever the challenges are, we need to find a way to resolve it rather than living in the space of complaining, right?
Yeah.
So my view is there are challenges. Look, I live in the UK, I live in London, and I tell you that there are even issues in the UK,
Mm.
right? So, I can't sit here and drum on issues that Ghana has got because every country will have their own unique issues. I've been fortunate to work for several companies that has taken me to several countries in the world working, and I wouldn't say Ghana's situation is totally off from what you see across the world. It's more an effort and a commitment how you resolve these issues. And I think it just only takes a bit of a will to make it happen. And that's the mindset that I believe I want to have.
Yeah. And I think it's totally right. It takes a almost kind of a network of actors between the government, but also, the people that operate on the ground have got to
That's
take the
right.
initiative, have got to, almost have a bottom-up approach rather than always top-down and
That's
being
right.
so I totally resonate with that. And I actually also lived in London for a few years, and there's definitely a lot of challenges over there.
Yeah.
Uh, Particularly, it's like the moment it rains or it snows, it's like they've never seen snow before.
Exactly. That's
Everything.
what I was referring to.
You would think that being in the north of Europe, they would know how to handle it, but they don't.
That's right.
Um, well, absolutely, totally agree on your point, and as well, I mean, Ghana is one of the main mining and logistics hub in the world for a reason. So I think it's a great point on your end. And speaking a bit more about the mining aspect of things again, but doing those interviews in Côte d'Ivoire, there was a clear sense that the place is literally one of the best in the world to find gold in terms of geological endowment, and now there's lots of capital as well coming into countries like Ghana, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, even Mali, on the shear zone with Senegal. What do you think this is going to mean for service providers and for businesses like yours going forward? Do you think it's going to be are you pretty bullish on the demand that's going to come from the industry for your services?
I am bullish. I am bullish because I see beyond today.
Mhm.
And for me, the growth that we're talking about, maybe even 3 years ago, we kind of saw that it will happen today. And so we needed to prepare ourselves for it. And that meant that you had to put in a lot of capital to make it happen. A lot of service operators have to have the infrastructure in place. They also need to have the capital to be able to, acquire whatever they are supplying to the mines, right? So it's all a capital injection that you need to prepare yourself for. And if you don't see beyond today, you would not be able to find yourself in that space.
Yeah.
I think that with the capital that is being injected into mining, right? Whether gold, whether lithium, just name it, you would eventually have a very solidly built service industry that will be able to support the operations of the mines. And I believe that part of that is also legislation, and government needs to support in that process.
Mhm.
For example, taxation is one key area that we could obviously be looking into. What is possible to, reduce a bit of the burden of the service provider, a bit of the burden of the mining operator. If a mine has to come in and pay, a very high amount of royalties, they will look elsewhere, right? And if the mine doesn't come there, the service provider is also not making money. So it's a whole kind of network that has to be worked by legislation to bring the best out of it. And I think that I see that the next 10 to 15 years has got a lot of growth, a lot of bullish, atmosphere from the operations of, the mines. Now we have several discoveries. All these discoveries come into operation would inject a lot of capital. And as the capital comes into the system, it goes to create employment, which is one key thing that we haven't talked about. A lot of what we do has to go into people's pocket locally, right? If it doesn't enter people's pocket locally and it is actually repatriated abroad, then people on the ground in the neighboring communities are not feeling the economic growth. So the right infrastructure, the right legislation, the right investment impacting local content, local people, communities close to the activity is very important.
Absolutely. It's such a good point as well about the people, because I think the empowerment of the communities is going to be absolutely key for any operation, any industry going forward. I think particularly when we speak with the not even just the biggest mines in Africa, but even the explorers, their social license to operate and the kind of giving back attitude is everything if they want to be able to go forward. And there's even, I feel, this year more than the previous years, the realization as well from African leaders that it's how the continent is going to go forward, moving away from solely an extractive based model to a model that benefits the whole community. And I think the terminal in Tarkwa and the other ones are a great example of this as well, because I guess it also, you also provide training to the new people that come. I mean, it fosters the future generation.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think, Peter, that's been a fantastic interview. Honestly, really cool update from last year. Perhaps just a quick conclusion. What's going to be the key priorities for you moving forward, and how do you see the next 12 months unfolding?
I think consolidation is key for us. We want to consolidate the lubricant market in Ghana. So we would be doing quite a bit of, CapEx, opening, one more, two more terminals. That's certainly one route to go. I also think that we would be focusing a lot more on the region, and obviously East and Central Africa. We see certain markets to be having a lot of potential that we want to actually get into and be able to increase what comes to the kitty from there. Growth is very important in everything that we think of when we obviously think of Dutylex. So we would be doing everything that ensures that we achieve growth. And for me, that's simple: doing the right things, ensuring that there's value in what you provide to your client, ensuring that your client is happy, ensuring that if at night your client has a lubrication problem and calls you, you can be there to support them. That is the kind of mindset that we need to be having with Dutylex in our bid to become the #1 lubricant solutions provider in the sub-region.
Well, there's no better way to wrap this up. Great conclusion. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank
you. I'll be actively monitoring the steps for you guys to become #1 in the region. It's a really exciting time to be covering that space. I'm just going to stop the recording now, and I'll let Salma take over.
I appreciate that.